Welcome to another episode of AutoSave. I'm Camille Salazar-Hadaway here with my co-host, Nick Andrade. Hello, Nick.
We're old, Camille. That's why I'm starting the episode. We talked for 15 minutes and basically have come to the conclusion that we are old and we are decaying and we are clinging to life through video games.
But anyways, we're depressed, but we aren't fully. We're going to liven up, the energy in here.
For the audience.
For the audience, because it's coming to a close, our saga of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yes, on this episode of AutoSave, we're finishing our deep dive into FF7 Remake. And, chapter 18, Nick, really is the final chapter. And there's so much that happens. And a lot went down because we got to talk about where we left off. A lot went down in chapter 16 and 17. We rescued Aerith, rescued Red 13. In the process, who also joined our group, we confronted the president of Shinra, who was stabbed and killed by Sephiroth. Barrett was also killed, but psych, Whispers brought him back. We fought Rufus.
Lots went on, holy crap.
And escaped in a unrealistic, very tiny Shinra car. It all went down.
We have them surrounded, sir.
Yes, I can see that. It was only a matter of time. Here we are. So then, what is this ragtag group of misfits I see before me? Avalanche!
Local florist.
Lab rat dog.
And where are the rest of you? Up your ass. Charming, though not what I would have chosen as my last words. Secure the ancient, but feel free to kill both the idiot and the dog.
Labrat Dog, Local Florist, and Avalanche took us here to Chapter 18, Destiny's Crossroads. I still love that. I think that scene may be my favorite scene in the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, that scene, especially the crescendo of the music.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It makes me, it hits me on the feels,
and it gave me a little tiny goosebumps.
Barrett and his beautiful, one-liners. Bravo.
I know.
Bravo.
It's right up your, I won't finish it, but Barrett says best. Anyways, this is the final chapter of the main game. I said it 10 times and I'll say it again because it's very exciting to finally get our final thoughts together about it. And for today, our theme is twist and shout.
Twist and shout.
Yeah, so pretty much with this theme, it's of course something at the end that turns the audience head because it's unexpected and you don't see it coming. So keep that in mind while we talk today, and we'll give our final thoughts. Now, considering how different this game is from the original, I think we're expecting a huge turn. And we did twist in our Miles Morales episode, so this time, the twist from the remakes, I feel like it should change the ending. So that's what I'm anticipating as we go into this. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so at first, we kind of talked about twists in Miles Morales and what happened in that game. So I didn't want to necessarily talk about, what twists have we seen in movies or whatever like that. So I thought this time, what about remakes and remakes that actually changed endings or changed things that happened? Obviously, in this game, we know throughout the entire game, they've been changing a bunch of stuff. We don't know really what's going on leading into Chapter 18, but I'm sure to say that there's going to be twists. But I thought to myself, what are remakes that were made that changed endings? And the first thing that came to mind was Planet of the Apes, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, that most people actually hated. I watched it in the theaters when I was a kid, young Nick at the time, and I liked it. But at the end, Mark Wahlberg actually does go back with his spaceship, I guess, back to Earth.
Yes.
And when he gets there, there's Abraham Lincoln. That's right.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln is an ape, and all the people on Earth are apes. which I thought was hilarious.
That's a really good one. Infinity War kind of has a twist there from the regular superhero trope at the end when Thanos does his infamous snap. You don't expect the villain to win. I did not expect that as well. I would say that's a twist.
Okay, I remember too in theaters, like I left sad because, I didn't think that was going to happen, even though, you think the Avengers are going to win in the end because there's 2 parts of the movie.
Well, it's a superhero movie. They have to, right?
Yeah. And the other one that I thought of, I don't watch horror movies that much because I'm a scaredy cat and I don't like jump scares. I don't like being scared and I know it's coming, especially like there's always like that movie where you see like an old tiny lady in like the background of maybe like a rickety hallway, and then all of a sudden she just runs really fast into my zone.
Yo, I am home alone right now and I could see like my closet. Please, Nick. Don't.
Sorry.
Not right now.
What if an old lady
dark
comes
in the
out?
hallway. Oh my gosh, Nick.
No, you're not scared. It's light outside. I can see. I see Camille right now. It's bare light in her room. You can't be scared. It's not dark.
It is dark in the hallway, and yes, I'm scared of everything. But yeah, I feel like those are the only ones.
So my horror thing that I'm going through is, so the movie The Mist, the book was written by Stephen King, and they did the movie I think a while ago, and then they remade it. I think in the last 20 years or so. I'm not really sure when it was, maybe like 2010 or something like that. Anyway, at the end of the movie, it's the main character with 3 other characters, and they realize, it's really messed up. They realize that there's no way out of this. Like the mist is there. The aliens that are killing people are going to keep killing people. So what do they decide to do? In a car, they decide to one-off each other. They basically kill each other. So they draw. I'm watching Camille's face with it because he's never watched this movie, so I'm spoiling it for everyone and her. But at the end of the movie, so they draw straws. I think there's a little kid, an old man, the love interest, and then the main character, and they draw straws to see who's going to kill everybody basically, and then kill themselves because no one wants to do it. The kid, I think, is off the hook. Anyway, the main character draws the bad straw and proceeds to kill the 3 other characters. And then he puts the gun in his mouth. He's about to pull the trigger, but then the mist subsides and the army tanks come in, and apparently all the aliens, I guess, died because of the atmosphere or something like that, or the common cold or something like that. I forget what it was. No, the common cold was War of the Worlds. I'm messing that up.
I think it was the atmosphere or something like that.
Yes.
Right?
So they die, and the army rolls in while this guy's about to kill himself, and then he watches in horror as he realizes he killed the 3 other people, and he survives. And apparently it was like super like overly panned. Like people hated the ending. They couldn't believe that they did something so dark. They killed a child at the end. But they decided to go with that. And you know what? I appreciate that because sometimes, especially with remakes, it's really hard because you have source material and you have a lot of, fan service. And what's the point where you can change things that make people either uncomfortable or angry? I'm all for it. And I like when they change endings like that. And that was a specific example for that. And we'll talk more about it, I think, moving through this episode. But you can kind of see where my heart is with this.
Your heart is in the right place. That's a horrible ending for a movie. And it kind of sounds like maybe Whisperers were present. And speaking of Whisperers, there's a lot, I feel, in terms of talking about the ending of this remake and how things will change. Last episode, we talked about how the Whisperers are really that force for change. And as we go into this final chapter, I feel like they're going to play a huge part in maybe showing us how things could go a little different. After the break, we find out what happens to the Avalanche crew on AutoSave.
Home free, Red.
I wouldn't celebrate just yet.
Man, you need to lighten up. Hell, you might even try smiling. On second thought, maybe frowning suits you better. Hey, don't pout.
Look.
I love these little awkward exchanges
I know.
between like Red and Barrett. They're awesome. But, this group and Red is right. I don't think they're out of the woods, especially if you get out of your vehicle and stop on the highway, which this group does, to look back at all the whispers around the Shinra building.
Listen, they have to because Barrett is too big for the car. They have to slow down and stop, which again, it's driving me nuts. This car is way too small to drive way too fast.
Yes.
With Barrett, who's probably 300 pounds, soaking wet, by the way.
Yeah.
And there's no way. This car looks like it's 300 pounds itself.
Definitely not the best car to go into battle with, but that's exactly what happens. Cloud enters. There's some bike action here, and I love this part. It was so much fun because Cloud's on his bike, but then the group in the car, Barrett and crew, are kind of also helping out with this fight. How did you find this?
It was super fun. I like the Roche motorcycle scenes. Felt a little bit more monotonous, but this one just seems super fast paced. You could tell it's the end of the game. They're trying to rev things up a little bit more. There's a boss fight. There's Shinra guards. There's a lot going on, and it seems like the bike mechanics feel better for some reason. I don't know why, but it felt really good.
Yeah, I feel like what it is here is, the first time when we were on the bike and with Roche, it was very much like you had 1, 2, maybe Shinra troops, and then Roche is the main boss, especially coming off the excitement of 16 and 17, where it's just action-packed nonstop. And then I think here I was expecting the game to kind of go into a cutscene. We kind of get a break, could rest, and then action. It didn't do that. So I think it kept us on our toes. That kind of bled into this idea of like this cutscene like being just fast paced, which it is. And then you also have the helicopter shooting down at you. So you have like ranged enemies as well as like enemies that you're going to hit with your melee weapons. But again, all that fun is pretty much put to a pause because the Whispers kind of intervene and help rescue us from an explosion. Now, an important quote that happens here is that Red says the Whispers intervene not to defend us, but to preserve the flow of destiny. So this is something that we kind of knew. I feel like Red's saying like he's just at this point, I feel like the game is just confirming a lot of players' theories. But the question is, what are they trying to preserve?
So, okay, I don't know how far deep I should get into this, but I got into a rabbit hole in Final Fantasy lore and the creators.
I feel like we are going to go heavy lore later, but I want to hear the tip of the iceberg now.
Okay, the tip of the iceberg is the Whispers are Final Fantasy VII, the original. Okay? And what they are doing is guiding the team to make events happen that are close to the original. But when we deviate from that, that's when they're trying to stop us. Does that make sense? Is that weird?
It does make sense.
Okay.
It's not weird because I'm kind of on the same page. I also look at the Whispers as like fans of the originals that are just made to be trolls. So like you have when they announced this remake and fans are like, why are they remaking Final Fantasy VII? Oh my God, they're going to ruin it. They said the story's not the same. Like, why would they do it? It was already perfect. That's the Whispers.
I agree with you. It's like they're you can't do this. Are you I spent 20 years playing this game 40 times. This doesn't happen. You can't let this happen. You are 100% right. I agree.
I just cracked the code. That is Final Fantasy VII Remake. You guys are welcome.
And, oh my God, wait. I just thought of something more. They're Whispers. Guess what? They're cloaked. You know why they're cloaked? Because it's like trolls on the internet where you can't really see who they are. And they have pictures of themselves that either are not them or egg photos from Twitter that are just generic. Yeah, I see it now.
See? I love that. And that's a really good point that you pointed out there. And yes, I did say point and point it out. Just leave it alone, people.
Okay.
Anyways, this leads up to a final mech kind of battle. And this was really fun because it's kind of like a tank boss. But then he flips on like one side and then flips on the other. And then he goes far. So then there's kind of like range that you could do. I had a lot of fun with this fight. And it's not difficult. It's just you got to stagger it and then kind of avoid the wheels as they hit the ground. But it is a ton of fun. I was really surprised that we're getting this much fun this late in the game.
I don't know, these final missions, I feel, they're never, especially in a lot of JRPGs, they're never super hard, but they're entertaining. So I feel like you get kind of the hard boss fights out of the way, and then near the end, you get some, not necessarily easier, but straightforward fights. Maybe not so in the, in the late 90s or something, they made those incredibly difficult. But I'm thinking like the last 10 years or so, those final boss fights are more fan service and making you feel good rather than getting you frustrated. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's what it feels like with this fight and maybe others to come as well.
That's fair to say. Now, once you're over with this fight, that's kind of it. You're at the end of the line.
And you're wrong.
Those who look with clouded eyes see nothing but shadows.
Everything about you is wrong.
All born are bound to her. Should this world be unmade, so too shall her children.
The world won't end today. But you will.
Listen. Destiny comes.
Embrace your dreams. And whatever happens, protect your honor. As a soldier! Come and get it!
All right, so obviously you hear
Lots
that
happening there.
theatrical music, which means obviously Sephiroth shows up, that beautiful, fun piece of candy, and the whispers go haywire. But what's more interesting than obviously Sephiroth's eyes and beautiful long gray hair and perfect face is that we get a different vision, and we see for the first time Zack.
Yeah.
We see a Zack reveal outside of Midgar, and he could actually see whispers circling around Midgard. Now, Zack, how do you explain who Zack is? I feel like if you don't know the original game, Zack is kind of like Cloud, but brunette.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna come up with some like super answer here, but no, he's basically Cloud but brunette.
Yeah, isn't that it?
Well, okay, so Cloud and Zack in the original game are best friends, right? Or friends?
So they're friends while they're soldiers.
Yes.
In the original game. And, like, I feel like we're at this point where there's going to be a lot that's going to be revealed in this episode. It's hard for us to separate if you didn't play the original game, but we'll try to make it so we're not spoiling the whole experience of the original game.
No, but yeah. I think we can still talk about characters.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause if you played this game, you kind of probably have already like who the hell is this guy?
But yeah, so Zack is friends with Cloud when they're soldiers, and this is hinting to a scene. I think we could talk more about that scene later in the lore when we kind of go into our theories about maybe where the game will go.
Sure.
Right? But we know that there's some relationship there, and also it turns out that Aerith might have had a thing for Zack.
That she mentioned before.
Yes,
also,
exactly.
Also, in this other vision, there is another Cloud that he is protecting.
Wait. I don't think we see that in this vision yet. We see it later. We see a body.
I know we see it. We do, okay, yeah, but that's what I'm assuming, right? He has the same big shoes as Cloud.
Yeah, I guess so. He has the big shoes.
Listen, I'm not afraid to spoil things for this audience.
Okay,
I know
fine,
you're holding
fine.
back. Okay, no, but
fine.
anyway, so we see him. I don't really know exactly what's happening. If Cloud is there, if that's not him, whatever it is. But Sephiroth is saying a lot of like weird existential stuff as well. And it seems like Aerith and him are having some
like they're on the same page.
Yeah.
They know exactly what, because Sephiroth is speaking in cryptic language, okay? No one knows what the heck that means. He's talking about just join me, you know, we got to help this world. He's ranting like, you know, a guy you'll see on at your local downtown in the corner of the street just shouting things. That is Sephiroth right now. And no one knows what he's referring to, but Aerith has this look like she also knows what he's referring to, and she's worried about what he's saying. And I kind of got the sense like she's worried. Yes, she's scared of Sephiroth, but she's also curious about Cloud's reaction and maybe knowing. Like, she doesn't want Cloud to know exactly everything yet. Like, she's, you know, when someone's about to tell a secret that you told them and you kind of give them the eyes, like, don't do it. That's what Aerith is kind of doing.
That's been Aerith the entire game, right? She always knows something or is like saying things that is like meta or like she already knows something that happened. So I'm not surprised by that. But also the whispers are going super haywire here. They all just come straight from the Shinra building and are like squealing like ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings. And it seems like this is what I can't figure out. Are they there to protect Sephiroth or are they there for a different reason? Because how they're reacting when Sephiroth comes in is interesting to me because it's like, okay, maybe they're not necessarily on his side, but what are they trying to do? Are they trying to, I don't know. Are they trying to block something from happening? Maybe this isn't supposed to be Destiny's Calling. Like, obviously, Sephiroth is not supposed to be in this part of the game. So what is their reasoning behind what they're doing? That's something that I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I feel like we'll never really get those answers. We'll just have to speculate. But at this time, it is time for the gang to step in.
Destiny's Crossroads.
Then why did you stop me?
I'm not really sure.
What will we find on the other side?
Freedom. Boundless, terrifying freedom. Like a great, never-ending sky.
So why did you stop me? I'm not really sure. Like, freedom's on the other side of that thing. What is Aerith talking about? If I was Tifa, I'd be like, girl, you knew this the whole time. Liar, acting like you don't know anything that's going on. But I'm pretty sure she has her reasons. And she's really terrified of Sephiroth. And she has reason to be.
Yeah, because she probably knows what's going on. But it's interesting here. So what she talks about with freedom, it has to be beyond this point. Now the whispers aren't going to control what's going on. So now we are in a new point in history, I guess, where we don't know what's going to happen. I think that's what she's alluding to. And she opens the gate with some sort of power because it seems like the whispers were blocking said gate.
Yes.
So she wants us to go towards freedom, but is also hesitant about it. What the hell, Aerith?
What the hell, Aerith? Well, I think going on like the fact that maybe Aerith, and we've had these theories before, Aerith knows the events of the previous game like the fans. This is pretty much the game devs just speaking to the fans. I think they're saying like everything you knew about Final Fantasy VII is going to change from this point forward. And I think it's a way to prepare people for the second part of this remake to say it may not align perfectly to what you know. And for Aerith, maybe for her, she knows how her relationship with Cloud goes throughout the first or the original game. And I think her hesitation may actually come from there because they're now potentially changing the path of Destiny. And if the path is not supposed to be the first game, her relationship with Cloud will change. We don't know if it's for the better or for the worse. We have no idea what's coming up, but I could understand why there would be that hesitation because she knows. So we've heard her talk about love with Cloud and Cloud and her and love. So I think she's afraid to kind of change that relationship, and also the feelings that she may already be developing for Cloud, that she knows, although she's developing that, maybe because of the outcome that happens in the original game, it has to change. Maybe they are not meant to be in the end for the greater good.
Do you think it's a bad thing for Aerith to avoid telling the group what's going on when they're willingly going into battle and willingly doing these things? And it's like, I know the future. Sephiroth and Aerith are kind of having this conversation where they know exactly what they're talking about to each other, but no one else does. And I think that's something where if I'm Cloud or I'm Tifa or I'm Barrett, I'm asking what the hell's going on, because I want to know if I'm going through this giant portal, what is the reasoning behind it? And I think those explanations, like it's this whole like, you know, wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff, because it's, if you tell somebody something about the future in the past or in the present or whatever the hell timeline this is, like what ramifications does it have? Do people make choices based on what they already know, and then it continually happens every time? I don't know. Now I'm getting into some weird Doctor Who crap.
Well, no, you're right. It's like every, Star Trek kind of talks about this as well. I'm a huge Star Trek nerd. We talked about it. Even in Endgame, when they do travel back to these pinnacle moments for the Infinity Stone, they're trying to avoid interactions with their past self. We see this trope in time travel throughout media all the time. And maybe that's what's going on here, because even Sephiroth avoids mentioning specifics. Like, if Sephiroth really is trying to, what it seems like, I don't know if he's trying to intimidate or convince Cloud, because he keeps talking about, like, reunion, come with me. Like, if he's trying to convince Cloud to kind of come on his side, I feel like if I was from the future, I would make up a lie that say, hey, I'm from the future and this happens in the future, which is a lie. Join me so it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then I get what I want. Sephiroth's not doing that. So maybe there's some sort of guidelines here for how destiny flows, and if individuals that know what's supposed to happen can alter it, not in their favor, if that makes sense.
I think I have not a theory, but I'm pretty sure I'm bang on this. I won't mention it right now, but there's a connection here with Sephiroth and Cloud as to why Sephiroth is not telling Cloud these things. Mm-hmm. And I will explain later, but that's my little tease for now. I think I know what the reason is.
I think I know too. We're doing the eyes like, I know, you know. But this is the time where we're finally able to kind of rest up, restock. There's a bench nearby. You could restock on any items through the vending machine as well. And whenever you see this point, you know it's about to go down. This is the end all. This is the final fight. And that's kind of what happens. We take on the challenge and challenge Destiny and go through the portal. Now, the Whisperers make some sort of vortex that could level everything in their...
It levels everything,
yeah. I think so. The Whispers are so weird. They could do anything, apparently. And a giant monster called the Whisper Harbinger appears.
Yes.
There's also 3 parts to this monster that is super annoying. I found this fight super duper annoying. It wasn't even like completely difficult, but every Whisperer iteration kind of mimics Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud. Because you have, I can't remember which Whisperer is like the one with the guns. The other one is like more of the fighting stance. And I hate when games do this mirror battle. It's like in The Legend of Zelda, you fight Dark Link. And it's always the most infuriating thing because it's like, I don't want to fight myself.
No.
I know I'm badass, okay? You don't got to tell me.
So, Camille, I thought the exact same thing, which is these 3, the Whisper, Rubrum, the Viridi, and the Crocchio. So these 3, they have a sword, a gun, and hand-to-hand. And so like you, I thought at the beginning that we're fighting this Barrett, Cloud and Tifa kind of reiterations or whatever of future selves. So if you assess them.
Oh, I did not assess them.
Yes. So this is a little tidbit. If you assess them, the information that it says about them is they are an entity from a future timeline that is manifested in present day. So I tried to go deep into this and I watched a few YouTube videos. I watched a few other people's theories and I'm kind of on board with this. It seems like the creators of this game, and again, they have the whole saga of Final Fantasy VII is a lot bigger than the original game. And there's a movie called Advent Children that kind of expands on that. There's also Crisis Core. There's a bunch of other iterations, and I think they're taking from a lot of these theories or a lot of these games, a lot of these other media outlets in terms of using it for this game now in terms of trying to make it their own. And so I found out that in Advent Children, I remember now, Sephiroth, that's why it's Advent Children, Sephiroth has 3 children. And their weapons, Camille, are a sword, a gun, and hand-to-hand. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
So we can't make a big deal about this right now. Again, it could be, we may be overthinking it, and it could be just Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud reiterations. But these are maybe future identities of Sephiroth. Moving forward, and this is kind of a hint of where the game is trying to go. Who knows? I loved your reaction to that. Thank you. But
yes,
it makes you think a little bit more of where they're trying to head, and maybe it's not so clear.
Well, yeah, and I feel like we'll talk about this more in the end, what the developers were trying to do with this game in terms of the overarching impact it has on the franchise. But that's a really cool theory. I love that. Now, as you go through the different phases of this fight, there's going to be like little cutscenes in between. But once you get rid of them all, you defeat Harbinger, and you're pretty much stopping Destiny itself in its tracks. So now there's just one problem in your way.
Let's finish this.
Fate is not to be taken lightly, Cloud.
Shut up! They're both beautiful. So Sephiroth appears, and we hear the redone theme. What do you think of it? Sephiroth!
Oh man, this is the point in the game where I started to stand. I was like out of my chair. I'm like, yeah, let's go. We get this way. I was nervous. I was nervous, Camille, because again, in the original game, you don't really fight Sephiroth this early.
Yes.
So the entire game, I'm thinking, please let us be able to fight him. And then the music comes, and Sephiroth, this amazing cutscene where the sky opens up and there's debris everywhere, and he kind of comes down in this, almost angelic-like way. Just incredible. You were probably like, hell yeah, weren't you?
Yeah, I screenshot that and printed it out and put it next to my bed.
Wow,
no, I didn't.
Hey,
but he was beautiful in this cinematic, like just how the light hits every angle perfectly. And I would actually say I really enjoyed just how Cloud completely, all of his guard on his emotions were left down.
Yeah.
So it's really cool seeing like Cloud in this animation just be fully expressive and fully scared. And I loved every moment of it. It just really brings him back down to earth than just being a brooding hero. So I love that.
Don't you love too, like JRPGs do this a lot, where they go from, again, the graphics are so good that you can almost not tell, but when it goes to complete cutscene, you're always just like, oh hell yeah, like let's go.
Yeah,
These graphics are insane.
Yeah, they did it super well, and you start off where it's just Cloud versus Sephiroth, and Sephiroth, he's just super quick, right? Like, it's Sephiroth. And there's so much at risk, like you mentioned, at putting him this early as an actual battle, because obviously you're supposed to lead up to that, and we still don't know how many parts of this game we have coming out. They never confirmed that, so it's like, how many times are we gonna have to battle him? But every phase you go through, you actually get one of the other members of your team, and I just love how it kind of started off with like Tifa appearing. Like when Tifa appeared, I was like, hell yeah, here we go, because my Tifa is so overpowered. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna be able to do like 500 damage on him, like no problem. And Sephiroth is just so good at refocusing on whoever enters the battle next. Like if you do one hit and you switch your character, you do one hit with Tifa, you barely have time to switch to Cloud before he goes ham on Tifa.
I love how realistic that is.
Yeah, like I just had to keep switching back and forth, and then when Barrett enters the fight, you just have that other level, and then, Aerith is there eventually, which is okay, I guess.
No, I need Aerith's heals, okay? She's my mage. She's my white mage, so I need her very badly.
Yeah, I guess so. She's okay. She's all right.
Yeah.
She's all right.
All right,
but Red shows up, and that's pretty cool. Now, it makes it very easy, like you mentioned, when you do have that healing factor in there, because Sephiroth is going to do a lot of damage, and it's not in just one blow. Because he's so fast, he takes like maybe 5 hits on you every time he interacts. But it's just a really cool fight. I like this one.
I mean, I had more trouble with Rufus than I did with Sephiroth. I don't know if you found this hard, but again, it was not one note. It was really well done, but I've had less difficulty defeating Sephiroth than I did Rufus.
Yeah, Rufus definitely, I think, was the more challenging boss of the two, but I think this one for me was just enjoyable, maybe because it's Sephiroth, so I had something beautiful to look at when I was fighting, but also because I think it's just how the pacing goes. You have the music playing in the background, the cool poses with every phase that you enter. And one of those phases actually has to do with one of his wings appearing. And that
one-winged angel.
Yes, it was just so cool.
Because that
I
too,
loved it.
what I love too is like he goes into that form, and we haven't heard the choir yet. But when he goes into that form, that's when you hear the choir,
like,
and I'm like,
yeah, so good,
just perfectly done. Wow.
It is done really well. And that just shows you that a boss fight, there's different ways to enjoy a boss fight. You can enjoy it because of its difficulty, but you could also enjoy it just because of how it adds to the pacing and the like overarching feelings of where the game is at that point. So Square, you did a really good job. Now, Cloud then looks to get one last strike on Sephiroth, but is taken to the edge of creation.
Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end. Nor will I have you end.
This is...
the edge of creation. Cloud, lend me your strength. Let us defy destiny together.
Never.
"7 seconds till the end. Time enough for you, perhaps. But what will you do with it? Let's see."
Okay, Sephiroth is saying a whole bunch of really strange things here. He says that, he will not end, nor will I have you end. Let us defy destiny together. Maybe he realizes Cloud will be his downfall and wants to bring Cloud on his side. That's what I was thinking from the beginning, just with things that he's saying to Cloud. Like, it seems like maybe he's trying to alter fate. And then this fight cutscene, I think what it is, it's just amazing. But I think how they do it is the lighting, maybe, like, and the pauses that they have with each strike.
It reminded me of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is an old Western movie from the 60s, but it's one of the classics. It's almost like that, where it does all these like cuts and these great moments where it's building the tension between them, which I really liked. But I mean, 7 seconds until the end, like, what does that mean? That was one of my favorite lines. And he's like, what are you going to do with that time? And I'm like, oh shit. Oh, damn. Do you have any theories on that? Because I got a few.
Oh, okay. I had no theories at all. I was kind of taking it for what it was, especially because like I was just in awe, like completely dumbfounded by how amazing these cutscenes have been in this chapter. But I just thought they were going to leave the game on a cliffhanger because Square didn't necessarily give us an inkling of an insight of how many like pieces to Final Fantasy VII Remake there will be, how many games there will be. I thought, okay, 7 seconds until the end. Okay, that must mean like this is probably the final cutscene for the game. And I got a little bit disappointed when I heard that because I'm like, I don't want it to end yet. But then after, we find out that it's not the only cutscene. And because of what happens in the other cutscenes, honestly, I forgot about this line.
Okay,
I completely
really? Okay.
forgot. Because there's so much that happens.
That one stuck to me the most because I didn't really understand what he meant. And I mean, the theory that I wanted to mention before, obviously you just did, which is I think Sephiroth, because we've talked about how he knows the future probably and Aerith knows the future, he knows that Cloud is his downfall. So what he's trying to do is get him on his side so that he can preserve his being. Even though, again, he has 8 million iterations of himself and he can't die, apparently. But that one iteration of himself, like he knows that Cloud is always going to be his downfall. So that's why I think he's trying to like get him on his side, which is, I don't know, they don't have that big of a relationship in this game to think like, well, why would he take his hand and go on his side? But the whole 7 seconds thing, again, did some deep diving.
Oh.
And there are some theories out there. I'm not really sure which it is. One of them is from when Aerith dies, from when he comes through the beam of light and kills her is apparently 7 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Another theory is that 7 seconds, that's how long it takes for Cloud to use Omni Slash, which is his final
his limit
attack, his final limit break, and that ends Sephiroth. So is he talking about that? Another one is that there's 7 party members in Cloud's alliance throughout the original game.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll meet later. So that's another thing. What the hell does he mean by 7 seconds? I'm not too sure. But I feel like it has to do something with the plot. And that's why I lean towards maybe not Aerith, because I feel like they've changed Destiny and where she survives and she actually doesn't get killed. But maybe it means, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with Zack as well.
Yeah, I even like hearing those theories, that's interesting, but I don't think any of those are necessarily it. I definitely don't think it's like the 7 party members, because why would he mention seconds in that? Unless this timeline, it's like a second to him. Every arc is like a second to Sephiroth. That doesn't make, like, oh, the Omni Slash. Yeah, but then why would he mention his downfall until the end, right? Like, if you're trying to convince someone to come onto your side, why would you mention 7 seconds until you kill me? Because if I was Cloud, I'd be like, oh, it only took 7 seconds. That's not too bad. All right, cool. I'll do that. I'll just stick to Destiny.
Camille's debunking all of them one by one. But I don't, that line really intrigued me. I really don't know what that means, but I really want to find out. I hope it's not just like up in the air and we never find out.
I'm pretty sure it's like going to be a mystery. And when we play the second part of this remake, they're going to be like, explain it more in details what 7 seconds means. There's probably a pinnacle moment that it's like irreversible. If it happens one direction, and maybe it is Aerith's death, if it happens one direction, he knows that's the thing that will secure his death, or that's the thing that will, or maybe it's a choice. 7 seconds for a choice for Cloud to make. I don't know. We'll never find out.
Which could also be Aerith. Oh, what if that in the new remake he sacrifices himself to save Aerith, and he dies. And that's the 7 seconds to his death.
So maybe Sephiroth's trying to say, hey, you have 7 seconds to like actually save Aerith this time.
And to choose if he wants to die or not. You have 7 seconds to choose if
you have 7 seconds. I know I'm telling you this, and yes, I could also not kill Aerith, but I'm just saying I'm going to do it anyways. So you have 7 seconds. Anyways, it takes us after this scene to Shinra for another cutscene with Rufus where he's basically like, this is the best. We have, I think it's Heidegger. He like, you know, and Mr. Vice President, and Rufus like completely ignores him.
Yeah.
And then it was Sung who's like, Mr. President. And then Rufus is like, yes, that's better. Like, that's right. I am the president.
This is like people that don't care about their parents just hoping to get their will. And it's like, now I'm the president and I get all this money. Screw you, Dad. I didn't really care about you anyway. You didn't love me.
Exactly. But it also shows a shift. So we're seeing that maybe the ones that were seeming like they were very powerful with the original Shinra president, they actually may have got bumped down the totem pole because Rufus just doesn't like him. So I love that.
Yeah.
They also show Hojo here, and he's standing where Genova was. And as a scientist, I feel like if someone stole your pretty much lab rat, like your prized possession out of your whole lab, this thing that you are building up, you won't be so happy. But Hojo laughs.
Yeah, but
maniacally.
He's a crazy person.
He's a crazy person, but was it in the cards? Does he know something, you know, Sephiroth is planning? Like, does he want this to happen?
Oh, shit. You just reminded me too.
Yeah.
Because Hojo knew something about Cloud earlier in the game.
Yes.
Right? In the last mission.
He was about to tell Cloud Cloud's whole backstory, which we know, you know, doesn't come until later in the game. And the Whispers took Hojo away so he could not disclose that information to Cloud, trying to keep fate in, you know, how it's planned out to be. So I feel like because of this, Hojo may also know more than he's leading on. He also did a lot of research with Aerith, a lot of research on the ancients. So there may be something more that he did not disclose to the president of Shinra, and maybe not even to Rufus. So I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out. But the more interesting thing is that we go back to Zack.
Wait, was that all of them? Hey, Cloud, did you see that?
Now, this is an interesting scene because obviously we see Zack again, so the game's trying to tell us more information here. And it seems like he beat all of the soldiers that were around him. It seems like he's the lone survivor. And in this scene, we also see then he like is surprised that he beat them all. Like it wasn't supposed to happen, which we know in the original game. This is the point where Zack actually dies.
Yeah.
And we don't see it, but we know he dies here. So this was different, and there was something else that happened in the scene, and at first I couldn't put my finger on it. Like when this scene happened, I was like, oh my God, he lives firstly, but there was something odd that stood out to me. I'm like, wait, that's not right. And when I thought about it more, at the beginning of the scene, we see a chip bag kind of fly through, fly past Zack's feet. And it has the image of Stamp, who is, of course, the kind of the mascot for Avalanche that we've seen throughout the game. But the dog is different on the chip package. It's more furrier. Stamp looks like kind of like a beagle type of dog. And this is kind of like a Pomeranian. What was it? Pomeranian? What are
Pomeranian? Yeah, it looked like a Pomeranian almost.
Yeah, which it's like, do they have two mascots, or is this maybe a different time?
It's an alternate reality. It's a different timeline. You know what? Maybe Loki stole from this game. Their the
TVA
story.
is the Whispers.
Yeah. Oh shit! It actually is really close.
Yeah,
it's
it
really
is.
close.
It is. But how'd you feel going into this and seeing the scene?
I was like, wait a minute. I like held my breath almost because I knew that we saw Zack, but again, I know that this is where Zack dies, but he didn't die. He rescues Cloud. So there's got to be an alternate universe here because there's two Clouds. And like we've talked about before, it seems like Cloud is always having visions of either Sephiroth in his ear, like he's a part of him, or other Clouds. I know in one of the scenes, we talked about this in Hojo's lab, when he sees kind of these test tubes, he has a vision, and it's multiple Clouds almost telling, he's talking to multiple Clouds. He's not talking to himself. He's talking to others. So it just makes me think, it's like, how many iterations are this and how are they connected? And obviously Square Enix is trying to tell us that, like, now we kind of maybe want, Zack is a write-off character in the original, but he gained steam throughout the lore and in terms of popularity in Final Fantasy. So I feel like maybe they're trying to be like, hey, let's just bring him back. And what's the way we can
Zack
do this?
Back.
If we change reality itself. But how does that connect with the reality now?
Who knows? But yeah, you're right. I think obviously they know Zack became popular with Crisis Core, but I feel like this, before when we had that fight, we knew we were changed. Like everything that happens after this point, we have no idea. It's not going to go like the original game. And they confirmed it off the bat with this cutscene that things are different. Like the game could have just left it at that with like Aerith saying, there's freedom. We don't know what's kind of going to happen in the future, but we never actually see that. I love that the game kind of implements this and does this with Zack. So it's going to be interesting because that plays into the romance factor. Yeah, so many thoughts. But we also get another cutscene after that. Biggs is apparently alive?
Yeah, what?
Biggs was one of the original. He died after Jesse, right? Or was Jesse first? He died after Jesse.
No, he died before.
Before Jesse?
No, but he presumably, we don't see him die.
We don't see him, but we think
where Jesse, she kind of loses her breath, so we know she's dead. But Biggs is kind of left up in the air.
Yeah.
But again, I guess the Whispers didn't do their job because they killed Wedge afterwards for no reason.
Yeah, they threw him off the elevator because he is supposed to die in the original. But then why is it that they couldn't get to Biggs? I think that's going to be an interesting question onto why this plays out, because Biggs has been dead for a long time. It's not like he just died and when they changed the course of Destiny or they defeated Destiny, that like before he took his last breath, they defeated the Destiny, and then he was able to live without the Whispers kind of, pulling the strings in Fate's favor. So I don't know how they're going to explain that. And I just hope it makes sense.
We sound like, honestly, this is how convoluted this game is. It's like I feel like we're just going in 18 different directions, but we have to. So if it's confusing to the audience, I'm sorry, but this game is still very confusing.
Yes, and I feel like everybody who's played this game, they definitely know exactly what we're talking about because there's so many thoughts here. We also see Marlene, and she's watering a plant, or she did water a plant. She's about to walk out of the room, Aerith's room at her house, and she turns back and she says, "Daddy," and we kind of see like a drop of like water. Do you feel like this means more than what it is? Like, I feel like it's kind of just Marlene. Just, that connection that you have with your family members where you get that sense like, something's off, or you get that sense that they're maybe watching over you or that they're here with you when you need them most?
No, because we had the scene with Aerith and Marlene. She goes like this and says, shh, and, not to say anything. So there's some sort of secret there. She feels the presence of Aerith. I think she feels Barrett calling out to her. So my theory, again, this might not mean anything, but I think that she is an ancient.
Yes.
Somehow. Because Barrett also knows quite a bit about ancients. Mm-hmm. So maybe his lover?
Well, I feel like we don't know. Okay. So
It's just
I
a
mentioned
guess.
this
It's just a
before. I
guess.
mentioned this before. I do feel like Marlene is like Aerith when they had that scene. It seemed like there was a common understanding between them two. It was like they were reading in between the lines. It was like they were telepathically talking to each other without saying the words out loud.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe, yes, she's an ancient, but I don't think Barrett would be aware. I don't think Barrett knows. I think just in his research.
No, I don't think
yeah.
Barrett is aware, but I just think that maybe there's some connection, but he doesn't know. I'm 100% agree with you on that and Barrett. I don't think Barrett knows, but I think maybe there's something there that he doesn't. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then we get more cutscenes, but this one is another one with Zack. We won't dive into it right now, but we will after the break on AutoSave.
Sephiroth. As long as he's still out there, I
thought you beat him.
We can. We will. Count me in.
If it's to be a hunt, you could use a nose like mine.
I'm in too. Bastard wants to destroy the whole planet, doesn't he? An enemy of hers is an enemy of Avalanche.
I love this scene because it is so cheesy. You get that, music going to crescendo, and like we get everybody putting their one-liners in that they're a team, they're going to stick together. And then we get Aerith and Cloud walking side by side, walking off to continue this adventure. Obviously, you could tell like this is going to be probably the last scene that you get from the game. And we get Zack walking in between them with Cloud. He is walking with Cloud. He says, just hold on, Cloud. We're almost there. And you get these Cloud, you get present Cloud, you get Aerith Cloud, then you get Zack and some other Cloud, and they're walking, and it slows down to kind of hold that this is a moment you should take in because things are gonna go crazy. But it also kind of plays like this kind of is confirming that there's an alternate universe, an alternate destiny, whatever you want to call it. There's some sort of alternate timeline happening here that is happening at the same time, because we see the Whispers crowding around the Shinra building, and then in Zack's timeline around all of Midgar. So it's like they affect each other. And you get this twinkle in Aerith's eyes that she's kind of looking at Zack, but not looking at Zack. Like she's aware Zack exists. And it blew my mind. It was the perfect way, especially for fans of this series, to just get that little... Because when you're ending a game and you know that there's continuations, you need to kind of give the players a conclusion, which we got with Sephiroth and this battle, and seeing, Marlene, and seeing kind of how some of these storylines are wrapping up. But then it also has to keep the doors open, and this moment did that in the best way possible.
So Aerith notices that Zack is there because she's an ancient, right? So she feels presence. Does that mean, though, is Zack dead? And this is just reliving something and that she feels it? I don't know. This could also... I don't want to open that can of worms because I do think it's an alternate universe, but I'm not really sure how she senses him. But I don't think she realizes what it is, but I'm sure she knows it's Zack because she can sense types of people. And I'm sure since they dated or, they were lovers at some point, that she feels something about him. But man, I don't know. I've also never seen you this excited about an ending.
No, we talked about the romance from the beginning of this game.
Yeah.
This opens the door that there's going to be a love triangle between Zack, maybe two Clouds, and Aerith. So
two Clouds.
I don't know. But there's going to be something that happens there that opens the door for Tifa to just wedge herself right in next to one of the clouds and for her to be happy. And that's all I want to see. So I'd be really happy for that. But also, I really do think, like, I don't think there's going to be two clouds in the end. I do think, because Cloud with Zack looked pretty beat up. He was barely walking and you don't see his face. So I do feel like that Cloud will die, you know, and Zack will be the survivor, which is kind of like the flip side of what happens in the original game. In the original game, we know that Cloud was fighting and he was the lone survivor and Zack was the one that died. So I feel like this alternate universe with Zack will be kind of what we're seeing with Cloud, but instead brunette Cloud, Zack.
I feel like this is leading to a more powerful Sephiroth, okay?
Really?
That in order to destroy him, they're going to need to merge timelines in which Zack and Cloud work together in the final battle to defeat Sephiroth. And in the end, I feel Zack still dies. I think that is his trajectory always, is that if in one universe he died, he always dies, but it might be in different circumstances.
Really?
That's my guess.
So.
Okay.
I don't think so, because
right.
when Aerith talks about Zack in the, I forgot what chapter it was, but when they're outside sector, I feel like sector 5, in the playground.
Yes.
She talks to him as though she's alive. So we know that she knows that there's this alternate universe with Zack, or we think she knows that there's this alternate universe with Zack. She was talking as though she was doing whatever she was doing for that person. Like she still didn't lose hope in that person. Even in her interactions with Cloud, like she obviously is falling for Cloud, but it seems like she's also holding back for someone else. And I believe that is Zack. I believe she is still fighting for her love. She still wants to see them reunited. And if there's a possibility where the world could be okay and she could have Zack, why not, you know, have her ice cream and a cherry on top of it too?
I also notice how Aerith says we can defeat him. We will, like, we can. I think that she now knows that maybe her destiny is shattered and she won't die, potentially. Or maybe not, I don't know. But for her to say that is kind of eye-opening. And also, this is Final Fantasy VII, where they killed off in the original one of the main characters that was one of the most shocking things ever done. There's no way that they move forward with this iteration and not kill off some sort of important character. So whether Aerith dies again, which I think they're going to subvert the audience and not kill Aerith, but I feel like someone will have to repay that and die, whether it is Zack again or whether it is Cloud, I think it's someone of importance. I thought it was going to be Barrett, but then the Whispers brought him back to life. So I think we're still waiting for that kind of a shock, which I think they still want to bring to the audience like they did all those years ago.
I think also Aerith may be talking to Zack or including Zack in that because then it's just right after that where we see Zack carrying Cloud. I feel like she knows that she has to, maybe it's an end game thing. She has to unify the timelines, get different iterations to come together. It's, you know, like maybe it's a multiverse kind of thing.
I think you just have a soft spot for Zack. I think you have a soft spot for Sephiroth, Zack, and Cloud.
Well,
that's
okay.
Just, I can see when you talk about Zack, there's a twinkle and smile that comes.
Well, firstly, Zack is exactly like Cloud, so it's just liking one person, but pretty much either if they dyed their hair as blonde or with their black hair. Okay, so it's just two people I really love.
All right.
Now, remember, we did defeat the Whisper Harbinger, so we know we destroyed destinies. So this means that everything from here on out is fair game. And we talked about this. I feel like with how they set up these final scenes, that's what the developers are just trying to set up. So we know going forward, things aren't going to be as they seem.
No. They've opened the door completely now, for sure. It's now, you don't know what to expect. We might, follow the same story in terms of like towns and who you meet, in the future, but it's definitely turned on its head and you need to prepare for that, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I am as well. So do you have any final theories on where the game will go after?
I think Zack and Cloud have to team up in order to defeat Sephiroth this time around, because he will be a lot stronger than the original game, and they need to cross paths in some sort of alternate universe thing, whether that's a time machine or some rift in the universe or whispers that come and help them do that. That's where I think it goes, and I think Zack still dies in the end, and Aerith survives. That's where I think it's going.
I feel like you have to kill one of the four. One of the four characters, the main characters, like you said.
Agreed.
I think we're going to see them probably not in the next part of the game, because we still have so much to scratch in terms of where this game, well, where the original went. And now we can't even reference the original going forward because we don't know what's going to happen. No. It's completely different. Yeah. But I do feel that whatever happens next, there is a possibility that they could intertwine new characters from other Final Fantasy series. The reason why I say this is because there's been lots of talks. I can't remember his name right now, but the developer of Final Fantasy X, he's been talking about that there is a plot for 10.3 that he'd love to explore, but they're focusing right now on Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's a scene in, all these flashes that we get when the Whispers are giving visions before the final fight, where you see Aerith in a pool and Cloud is holding Aerith. And it just gave me vibes like Titus and Yuna.
Okay. But you
it's
think
a really
that they're
far-fetched.
Yeah.
It's a far-fetched theory, but I don't think like Cloud and Aerith are going to become them, but I feel like it may hint that with whatever's happening with this multiverse, we know that now there's different timelines. It's not so far-fetched to think that it could also merge different Final Fantasy VII games. And this is something that fans have been wanting to see, different characters interact. Square has done this in other franchises that are not canon, where we see other characters interacting from different Final Fantasy series. So I don't think it's that far-fetched.
That's an interesting theory, because I think the one thing of all these Final Fantasies, every Final Fantasy is different, and they're usually all in different universes, and there's no tie-ins to each other. That would be the bombshell of the century for all nerds out there. If we found out that all these games come from the same universe. And if they did that, wow. I don't even know what to think if they actually did that. That is a cool theory, but I don't know how to feel.
Yeah, it's a cool theory. I'd love to see them attempt it. I don't know if them attempting it would be the smartest idea, but I'd love to see other Final Fantasy characters in here, as well as new characters that we want to see. But really, that's it for the game. Now, in the end, Nick, are you happy, angry, sad about how they decided to take the franchise with, especially the ending of this game? And, we know it's kind of realistic that they have to take a different direction because it is a remake. They stated that. But do you feel that they did take it to new heights?
Yeah, I think they didn't just take it to a different place. They really shattered it. And I think that's why maybe some fans are kind of frustrated by it. Because they don't know what's going on. But I think, again, going into mystery, and for new audience as well, you have to take into, respect that not everyone has played this original game. It's not for everyone because it's an old turn-based style game. There are younger generations who want to play these type of games, but they never got into the original ones. And this is a way for them to get into it as well. So I think it's fan service enough for people to be happy who are fans of it. And it also brings in new people to the franchise, which I think is really important. And now we're on this journey together where we all don't know what's going on. And you can, go through a YouTube rabbit hole and try to figure out theories. And that kind of stuff to me is fun because we're all on the same level playing field and we don't know what's happening. And we're excited to see what the future holds. And that's the most important thing for me.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, when you look at it overall, Square Enix knows exactly who their audience is. Like, none of their Final Fantasy games are trying to appeal to people who are necessarily new to that type of game. They may be new to, to this series of games, but they're not new to JRPGs. I do feel, though, like, for the FF7 remake, they took notes from Final Fantasy online, even 14, in terms of how you could do combat. Even 15, one of my issues with 15 was, again, they had so much plot holes and gaps in the story where it was like the developers were trying to or expected you to know things. And that was because of everything, all of the other marketing material that they had around Final Fantasy 15. So they had shorts about Pronto, Ignis, all of that. And then they had DLCs, and they wanted you to play all of that stuff in order to understand the main game. Yeah. And I feel like here what it was is they knew that they learned their lesson there, because that was a huge critique people had.
Yeah.
I liked the game. I just hated the story.
Yeah.
But I feel like they heard that critique from the fans, and they said, okay, look, we'll give you that mystery that sometimes could be convoluted, but we're going to wrap up some ends at the end and still keep that mystery alive, but you feel more knowledgeable going forward. So I really do like that they learned that lesson there. Do you have any extra notes to add?
That's a great point. But yes, I hated 15, and I hated how you literally had to watch something, play something else, read a comic, whatever the hell it was. Yeah. I was so confused at that game, but that's for another day. In terms of Final Fantasy VII, I give every sense of credit to this whole team that made this game, because I think it's really important to have your own creative freedom in things, especially when it's an old property. And if you're not afraid to take that risk, then I give you all the plaudits in the world. That's all.
All right. But before we go,
yeah,
I gotta say, usually sometimes I'll throw in why Cloud's sword is too big.
Let me have it.
And this time I don't have it. I think this chapter really proved to me why it has to be that big.
Thank you.
Sephiroth was throwing buses at him, huge chunks of concrete, and the Buster Sword just sliced through that like it was nothing.
And listen, you saw Sephiroth's sword, okay? His katana is probably triple the size of Cloud's Buster Sword.
Yes, but it is lighter. It's lighter because it's not
but he needs some sort of protection.
That is
in order to protect him from that long ass sword. So it has practical value, all right?
Yeah, so you know what, Cloud? You win, all right? Cloud, you could keep the clout of having a big sword, okay? You won. Right. You won that one.
Finally.
Yes, finally. Finally, I agree. But that's not it, like I mentioned, of our journey in Final Fantasy VII Remake, because we have the DLC and, the time to play as Yuffie. So we have to tackle one more thing.
Well, guys, your girl finally made it to Midgar.
But that'll be next time on AutoSave. AutoSave is produced and hosted by Nick Andrade and myself, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Zeiser. Executive producer, Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at AutoSave Podcast on Twitter and AutoSave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now. And if it happens to be Apple Podcasts, kindly leave us a rating and a review, but only if it's good. AutoSave is a Soda original hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.